Recent studies, including a comprehensive and sobering analysis by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, suggest that in the United States, over 40% of recent graduates are underemployed. In some European nations, that figure approaches a staggering 50%. Let that sink in. For every 2 graduates who toss their caps in the air filled with hope, one will end up in a job that a high school leaver could have performed. 1 out of 2. And let us dispel the comforting myth that this is merely a temporary stepping stone into a better career. The data is tragically clear. A graduate who starts their career in an underemployed role is 5 times more likely to still be underemployed a decade later. They suffer what is known as a permanent wage scar, earning significantly less over their lifetime than their peers who secured a graduate-level job from the outset. It is not a stepping stone. It is a trap, and it is snapping shut on millions of our young people.
This problem did not appear overnight. It is a crisis that has been compounding wave after wave. The millennial generation, who entered the workforce in the shadow of the 2008 financial crisis, experienced what many now call a lost decade of career progression and wealth accumulation. Now, Generation Z is entering a labor market that never fully recovered from that shock and has been further destabilized by the aftershocks of a global pandemic and the relentless march of automation. What we are witnessing is a debilitating echo effect. The pathways for entry-level graduate jobs that were clogged for millennials remain congested. This creates a brutal zero-sum competition not just among recent graduates, but between recent graduates and slightly older, more experienced, but still underemployed millennials who are desperate to finally get their careers on track. It is a multi-generational bottleneck, a traffic jam of talent with no clear exit, and it is getting worse with every graduating class.
Behind these statistics are human beings. The true cost of this crisis is measured not just in dollars and percentages, but in broken dreams, in pervasive mental anguish, and in lives put on indefinite hold. The most immediate and perhaps most insidious impact is psychological. For decades, we have told our young people a simple, powerful story. Work hard in school, get a degree, and you will secure a stable, fulfilling, and prosperous future. It is the cornerstone of the modern social contract. When that promise is so spectacularly broken, the psychological fallout is immense. We are witnessing an epidemic of what I call aspirational dissonance, the painful, disorienting gap between the future a graduate was promised and the stark reality they face. Studies from esteemed bodies like the American Psychological Association have consistently and conclusively linked long-term unemployment and underemployment in young adults to soaring rates of anxiety, clinical depression, and a profound loss of self-worth.
Consider a hypothetical yet all too common case. Let's call her Priya. Priya graduated with a master's degree in biotechnology, a field we're told is the future. She is saddled with $70,000 in student debt. For 2 years, she has sent out over 500 job applications. She's had a handful of interviews, all ending in the same frustrating rejection, often with the feedback, "You lack practical experience." She now works 30 hours a week as a barista to make ends meet. The aroma of coffee, a constant reminder of the laboratory she feels she'll never enter. Priya isn't just financially struggling. She feels like a failure. Her degree, once a source of immense pride and the focus of her identity, now feels like a mark of shame, a monument to a failed investment. Her identity, so carefully constructed around being a scientist, has crumbled. This is not just a personal tragedy. It is a story being repeated millions of times over in every developed nation. It is creating a generation scarred by a sense of inadequacy and disillusionment before their professional lives have even truly begun.
This psychological burden is compounded by a crushing financial reality. In many Western nations, higher education has transformed from a public good into an enormous upfront private investment.
In the United States, total student loan debt now exceeds a mind-boggling $2 trillion. In the United Kingdom, this entire system was predicated on a single, simple assumption that a graduate's enhanced earning power would make this debt manageable. But when the high-paying job fails to materialize, that debt becomes an anchor, dragging them down into a financial abyss. It prevents them from saving, from investing, from taking entrepreneurial risks, and from achieving the basic markers of adult life that previous generations took for granted. Home ownership? For many, it is a distant fantasy. Starting a family? Financially unthinkable. They are trapped in a state of protracted adolescence, often living with their parents well into their 30s, unable to achieve the dignity of financial independence.
There is another, more subtle and pernicious form of decay at work: skill atrophy. The complex knowledge and analytical skills acquired at university are like muscles. Without regular, rigorous use, they weaken and waste away. A computer science graduate who spends 3 years working in retail isn't just failing to gain new, relevant skills. They are actively losing the cutting-edge ones they once possessed. The coding languages they mastered become outdated. Their problem-solving faculties grow dull. This leads to the cruelest of paradoxes, the experience trap. Employers, inundated with applications, demand 2 to 3 years of relevant experience for a so-called entry-level job. But how can a graduate possibly gain that experience if no one will give them their first chance? They find themselves deemed overqualified for non-graduate roles, but underexperienced for graduate ones. They are caught in a professional no man's land, and with each passing month, their CV becomes less attractive, their university-acquired knowledge more obsolete, and their hope dimmer.
The individual tragedies of graduate unemployment do not exist in a vacuum. They coalesce and magnify, creating a series of profound crises for society at large. The economic and social price we pay for wasting an entire generation's talent is staggering, and we will be paying it for decades to come. First, let's talk about the direct, undeniable economic drag. A healthy, dynamic economy relies on a virtuous cycle of earning, spending, and investing. When a large cohort of your most educated citizens is either not earning or earning far below their potential, that cycle breaks down, and the engine of growth sputters. Reduce consumption. Graduates burdened by debt and low wages have minimal disposable income. They are not buying cars, which impacts the auto industry. They are not buying houses, which suppresses the construction and real estate markets. They are not furnishing apartments, which hurts retail. This suppresses economic growth. Lower tax revenue. This is simple, brutal arithmetic. An underemployed graduate working for minimum wage pays a fraction of the income tax they would in a professional role. At the same time, they may be more reliant on state support for housing or healthcare, creating a devastating double whammy for public finances, lower revenues and higher costs. This fiscal strain limits a government's ability to invest in infrastructure, healthcare, and, ironically, the very education system that is part of this problem. The innovation deficit. This, to my mind, is the most critical long-term economic cost. A nation's competitive advantage in the 21st century is driven by knowledge, innovation, and productivity. When your engineers, scientists, and programmers are not in labs and offices creating the next generation of technology and ideas, your entire economy stagnates. The next great medical breakthrough, the next revolutionary software, the next sustainable energy solution, it may be currently stuck in the mind of someone serving lattes. Wasting graduates is not just wasting individuals. It is actively choosing a future of lower productivity and diminished global relevance. The economic consequences are deeply intertwined with a looming demographic crisis. Across the developed world, birth rates are already falling below replacement levels. Graduate unemployment and underemployment act as a powerful accelerant to this dangerous trend. The decision to start a family is, for most responsible people, fundamentally an economic one. It requires a degree of stability, of financial security, and of confidence in the future that millions of young graduates simply do not have. If you cannot afford a home, if you are drowning in debt, if you fear for your job every day, how can you possibly contemplate bringing a child into the world? By delaying or preventing family formation, widespread graduate precarity is directly contributing to the rapid aging of our societies. This creates a future where a smaller working-age population has to support a much larger elderly population, placing an unbearable strain on pension and healthcare systems. It is a demographic time bomb, and by failing our youth, we are lighting the fuse.
Perhaps most dangerously, when a system consistently fails to deliver on its core promises, people lose faith in it. The crisis of graduate unemployment is a direct assault on the principle of meritocracy, the foundational belief that talent and hard work, not the circumstances of your birth, should determine your success. When young people invest everything they have into that system and see their degrees rendered worthless, when they see the path to a stable life blocked by forces beyond their control, they become cynical. They conclude the game is rigged. This profound disillusionment is fertile ground for political extremism and social unrest. They become receptive to the siren song of populist narratives from both the far left and far right that promise to tear down the existing system because the existing system has so clearly failed them. History provides us with stark and terrifying warnings. The widespread youth unemployment in the Weimar Republic was a key factor in the rise of political extremism in the 1930s. More recently, the Arab Spring was ignited in large part by the frustrations of an educated youth with no prospects and no voice. A large, disaffected, and educated young population is a recipe for profound instability. By failing our graduates, we are not just risking our economic future. We are risking the foundations of our democratic stability.
So how did we arrive at this perilous juncture? How did the university degree, once the undisputed symbol of success, become, for so many, a ticket to nowhere? The causes are complex and deeply interconnected. A perfect storm of structural shifts, misguided policy failures, and profound cultural change. The most fundamental cause is a deep and growing structural mismatch between the skills our universities supply and the skills our modern economy actually demands. For decades, we have pursued a policy of mass university expansion. While noble in its egalitarian aims, it has been implemented with a shocking lack of strategic foresight. We have been so focused on the quantity of graduates that we have neglected the quality and relevance of their education. Universities, often operating more like businesses competing for student fees than as institutions of public good, have frequently prioritized courses that are cheap to run and popular with students, such as some humanities and social sciences, leading to a massive oversupply of graduates in these fields. Meanwhile, our economies face critical shortages in areas like advanced manufacturing, applied data science, cybersecurity, and specialized healthcare roles. We are, in effect, training an army of sailors for a world that has become a desert, while starving the new economy of the talent it desperately needs to thrive.
A direct and predictable consequence of mass education is credential inflation. When everyone has a bachelor's degree, its value as a reliable signal to employers diminishes. The bachelor's has become the new high school diploma, the bare minimum for entry, not a mark of distinction. This forces ambitious young people onto a credential treadmill. They feel compelled to pursue expensive master's degrees or even PhDs, not out of a genuine passion for advanced study, but simply to differentiate themselves in a hopelessly saturated market. This creates a vicious, costly cycle. Students take on more debt to acquire more advanced degrees, which in turn raises the hiring bar for entry-level jobs, all without a corresponding increase in the number of jobs that actually require that level of education. It is an arms race of qualifications, a race to the bottom in terms of return on investment, and it benefits no one except the institutions selling the ever more expensive credentials.